A very, very special episode 308 with the Vancouver Titans general manager and friend of the show, Barroi, grandfather of statistical Overwatch, is here to teach us pretty about how the Vancouver Titans are just the best team in the world.
That kind of hit deep, I just turned 30 yesterday, man.
Really?
You can't just call me grandfather.
Wait, you guys.
You're a day.
Okay,
you're a day younger than me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Joe,
happy birthday.
Okay, that was my spiel as well. So okay, this is now the birthday boy podcast because Joe also turned 30. Like
end of July.
Yeah,
I didn't know yours was August 1st.
No, we talked about that like at some point a few years ago. I remember now. Where you're like 1 day older than me.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I forgot about it.
Okay, so
well, happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
This is now a post 30 joint pain podcast.
It really is. Yeah. Do you feel any different, Roy?
Nah.
I
went on a run this morning. Everything's still working. I didn't break down,
That's the beauty of running. Like as long as I committed to keeping running as long until the age of when Eliud Kipchoge stops. This man is probably, I think he's 2 years ahead of me in age, if I'm not mistaken, and he's the best marathon runner in the world. As long as he's going, I'm going. Because then I can delude myself into thinking I could still get there. And after that, it's all golf, baby. Like it's golf until I get like buried. It's the only.
Yeah, didn't you
left.
say your brother-in-law is golfing now?
Yep. Yeah, it's making
gonna be an
big play in Germany for some reason.
Really, golf, all things. Yep. Strange. Any old boomer hobbies you're getting into? Yeah.
Yeah, such an old white man. Either you're old and white or you're just like some business jock,
some affluent, yeah.
It's like, yeah, dude, let me sell you these stocks. Let's go.
Let's just write this off as a business meeting,
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
Like I was introduced to golf because I don't know if like my YouTube algorithm, especially during the pandemic, suggested me like these guys just like roasting people at the at the hit off or whatever, and like
I don't know what it is, but
they just try to break people during the swing, and it works surprisingly often. Like they also have a bunch of celebrities. One of the most hilarious fucking bits. Like
it's funny.
Yeah, that's basically like my introduction. This is why I have brainwashed myself into thinking golfing is cool. Okay.
Nice.
Because there's some like hack comedians that will like neg people.
Yep.
As they try to swing. All right, very good. Well, what we're not going to do is we're not going to break down how the Vancouver Titans landed one of the sleeper picks in the off-season roster shuffle. What we're not going to do is we're not going to, talk about how the Vancouver Titans are going to be practicing for their upcoming playoff race where they could be going 6-0. We'll have to see. What we're not going to do is we're not going to talk about how Activision Blizzard are just the peachiest, best esports company in the entire universe. So there's nothing wrong happening here at all. That's what we're not going to do. That's not what we're going to do for episode 308. And this episode is... See, I'd like to continue with the bit, but I can't really do like the people, dirty. So this episode is actually brought to you by Battle Crab, Refined Bean, Bronze Babu, Hal, Picasso, Lulshin, Porkchop, Sammy, Rexane, Volamel, and Sugar High. And our YouTube members, Blave, Bliss, IMDRW, Brother, Adamel, ISMGL, Fireman6, and AK. I'd like to say that wasn't supported by you guys, but it definitely is. And it has been for a long time. So shout outs to you guys. 2-0 week. It's been very nice for me, I will say. Very, very, very good for me. We haven't necessarily bigged up a lot of the Lord bet for some obvious reasons, but a huge week, you guys, coming off of a 6-0 week 3, kind of trouncing the Justice and Gladiators that have not looked competitive in a few weeks. Kind of give me the lay of the land right now. What's Titans HQ looking like?
Yeah, honestly, I think going into this week, everyone expected to beat both of these guys, both of these teams. I thought that it was very possible and maybe even disappointing if we don't go 6-0. just because we've been doing insanely well in practice ever since we got HeeSang on board. Losing against Toronto and Florida in the first week of practice was kind of a letdown. I mean, Florida's Florida,
Sure.
right? So we had hopes for that match, but they're still Florida. But the Toronto match, yeah,
That was winnable.
I don't know, just very winnable. Just
Yeah.
choking a little bit, I guess. But yeah, I mean, things are looking good. We feel the Sombra Tracer meta right now. Love the monkey. And anyone who doubted Punk at the start of the season, like, I don't know. You were wrong.
A little bit. Everything's kind of gelling together. I think for me, at least, I think that Toronto game, I was like, okay, this is like, this is growing pains. This is like a new acquisition, a little bit of a disconnect between him and Punk, or maybe it was just an overall strategic thing to have like the DPS kind of like floating and doing their thing while Punk kind of like, tanks aggro, if you will. But yeah, like going back to that game in particular, in week 1, the 3-2 loss to Toronto. Was that like kind of scary for you? Obviously, coming off of like a big acquisition in HeeSang from the Shock. Was that kind of concerning?
Maybe a little bit, because like I said, we had very high hopes going into that. It was the best week in practice we had. I think we tripled our wins against Atlanta in scrims just from that 1 week. Like, I think before that week we were like 2-42 or something against Atlanta over the season in scrims, like in maps. And then that week we did actually fairly well, and we got like 4 map wins or something against them. So that's always a good like standard, Atlanta started the last out of every team to practice, so maybe it's like a little bit biased, but anyway, like we felt pretty good. We beat, I think, basically every other team in scrims as well. So going into the match and kind of not delivering was a little bit scary, because then you're always thinking about the team breaking down and like everything exploding. But fortunately, like the primary aspect we hired for this season was just personality and not necessarily in-game skill, and that showed like over and over again that like when we do lose, or when we are down like 1 or 2 maps in a game, like the guys are resilient and they're coming back, and we're not like Washington and like just exploding after like losing a single round of control,
Which is rough,
so
right?
is this a little bit of a jab towards maybe a certain flex support player that just kind of popped up recently, last couple games? I'm not going to name any names, but I don't know. It seems kind of weird.
Yeah.
Okay, Yiska, what were you gonna say?
But like you kind of also need that, just because like control is a little bit like you basically start series is pretty slow, just based on the map type, right?
Yeah, control is definitely our worst map. Unfortunately, there's no like. Honestly, I would be so down for choosing map types and playoff brackets, but like, it's not gonna happen. Control has always been the first map, and for some reason, we're just not good at it. We're just not good at control. But we're pretty decent at everything else. And I mean, if you look at our escort, we're 11-2 this season. We won against Florida twice on escort. Like, I wish that map was map 1, but like I said, we are resilient. So even if we're down a map, we can come back, and we win enough control maps that we still win matches. So that's good for us, I guess.
And this was kind of something that we were kind of debating on prior to the show about, or at least kind of asking you, but obviously moving from being an assistant coach with Boston and kind of like working with teams in the past when you're in and about Winston's lab, and moving to the Titans as the general manager. Have you like tried to help yourself not trying to get into the X's and O's of the game, or is it just kind of like your nature to just be like, all right, like I gotta have a comment here, I gotta like talk to Askoff? Like, are you still like helping out in some way in the coaching aspect of the team, the day to day?
Not really. The coaching aspect, not as much. When it came to putting the team together, Yes,
Sure. Okay.
I was having like a lot of input, and me and Val worked together on this a lot. It wasn't just him, it wasn't just me. We just did this together. But when it comes to coaching, it's all him, because the the whole like the whole perspective we take on coaching this year is very different from, I think, most of the teams, where we just or at least we execute it differently, where we're trying to get the players to be as autonomous as possible, and we basically want to try to make our coach obsolete, where like he's facilitating conversations a little bit and like talk about strategy a little bit, but mainly it's up for the players to do so. And what Ascov mainly does this season is just to make sure our team environment is like set up well, and like the players all respect each other. If there's criticism, it's being done constructively. Everyone's open to hearing criticism. Like there's no problem with calling people out, and less so on the strategic side. And the strategic side is more like the players figure it out themselves, because they're the ones actually playing, and they probably know more about the game than like any of us. So that's the whole idea we had for going into this season, and it's been working pretty well for us. So yeah,
Say so.
Gator's
I'd say
school of
that.
coaching.
Yeah.
Lip go kill.
Yeah.
Lenny
enough,
find kill.
Yeah, funnily enough, it's something that that Atlanta embraces too, and I think it's very valid. I mean, they obviously have the best players like on basically every position, so it's maybe a little bit easier. But even for a team like us, who you might go into the season and you're like, they're bottom mid, because that was the kind of perspective most people had. Like even for us, it works. You just have to find people who are perceptible to that and who are able to do all that as well.
I'm about to hand you a pile of mud, and it's up to you if you want to sling it. But do you feel like there is something to be said about, Atlanta came back, pretty late back to scrims, and now they're also looking weaker. You kind of saw it in your scrims, maybe. Of course, like, don't want to discredit like how you improved, but there's two parties playing that scrim as well, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there's an argument to them being a little bit too on a long leash, I suppose?
I don't think so. I don't know what is happening internally and in the games, but I think Atlanta is probably still the strongest team. I think them losing against Houston was something that was very unexpected. I think Houston just played very well. And honestly, if you play against Florida, anyone can lose against Florida, because Florida is just playing weird shit everywhere all the time. It's just Gunbird like trying his best to cheese the game out as much as possible, and he's just very good at it. And yeah, I mean, if you lose against them, unlucky. It's just
no harm, no foul. Sometimes you just get rhined on. It is what it is.
Honestly, like I don't think it's anything that I would read too much into it. Like any game you play is like there's always a chance you lose. Like there's always the chance that like events happen and then you end up losing closely or not so closely. But I think Atlanta is still the strongest team in the league right now, even with their 2 losses. And I wouldn't read too much into them losing there. I think that them coming back late is fine. I think generally, like, if you scrim less, it doesn't even mean much. I feel like, for example,
hey, you hear that? Scrims don't matter, bro. I don't know what you're talking about with the stock exchange, but you hear this guy? He knows.
That's not what I'm saying, but like sometimes if your team knows how to play meta, your team knows how to play something, you don't necessarily have to scrim all the time. Like, for example, we went 6-0 this week. We scrimmed for 3 days. We had 2 off days on Wednesday and Thursday. We didn't even scrim. Like, it was because of extenual circumstances.
Sure.
But which we couldn't do anything about. But so generally we would have still scrimmed. But I'm just saying we didn't scrim for 2 of the 3 days before our match, and we just
Still did well.
We just still like destroyed the opposition. So I think generally, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into Atlanta going a bit, losing a few matches here and there.
Dare we approach the sandbag narrative? Is this like a playoff? Let's just coast a little bit. Let's prep for the new patch.
I don't think anyone intentionally loses or like
sure, yeah, of course.
or like tries to like be less good at any certain point. But yeah, I think they're gonna be fine. I don't think they sandbagged or anything like that.
You look at those names, you look at Fielder and Chio, and it's like, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right. I think that if you come back later from scrims, it's okay. I think in both circumstances at the start of the season and in the after mid-season break, we are one of the last teams to start scrimming.
Okay.
Like definitely at the start of the season, I think we might have been last or like one of the last 2 or 3. And when after mid-season, we were, I think, the last team that started, aside from the teams that went to Korea. Yeah, so it's just, I don't know. And we are probably, right now we are at the middle of at the top of the mid pack. So
yeah,
I don't think it means much. Maybe it's even better if you don't scrim as much. I think it does just not have the impact that people sometimes think it does.
Do you think you also get to, like, basically if you're coming in late, then you get to skip all the, meta finding periods where, like, especially at the start of the season, where everyone's sort of negotiating what the strongest comps are, and then if you come in week 2, okay, you guys decided, okay, let's see if we can play this.
Maybe there's an aspect to that, but I think this season is pretty unique in that, like, a lot of teams played a lot of at least at the start of the year, and even now, I think at least teams are playing a lot of unique compositions that are suited to them. So which is pretty nice to see. So I think it's not that big of a dodging the weird stuff, because you still get the weird stuff all the time.
Especially, these last few weeks, definitely a lot more like returning back to like former identities. Team like London, we're out here playing Ryan on Gibraltar like absolute madmen.
It's pretty nice to see.
It is super refreshing. I can't maybe do you have any insights or do you have any like anecdotes from like the locker room and at the Titans place where some of the players feel like they're a little bit more excited to get into the official games. They're more excited to scrim, that it isn't just like Monkey, Sombra, Tracer, Mirrors, 6 maps in a row, 3 blocks a day, 7 days a week.
I think we are pretty excited to play the Monkey Sombra Mirror.
Okay.
Sombra Tracer Mirror, but I don't. Yeah, but I think generally, like, sometimes we have scrims and we know we're just gonna 6-0 that scrim unless we start trolling. So it's like, why are we even here? So it's just the guys are less excited to just practice than to actually load into the game. But like even our games, it's just like the washing game. It was just such a letdown for the guys.
Yeah, like they were just like they were hoping for something, and it wasn't there.
Yeah, it was just not. It was just boring, man. Like, fuck. Imagine being in that situation. You still have to win, and you're playing against Bambas on Ana. It's just fucking ridiculous.
It's a little odd, a little strange, I'll say.
Getamaze mentioned that they tried that in scrim. Did they? I assume you guys didn't. During that time, right?
When they subbed in Benbest, Askoft said that he knows that Benbest plays more Ana than Brick and Ranked or something. So we were like, okay, he probably is on Ana, but we obviously didn't scrim against Washing before, and so we didn't ever see that.
Right. Do you think, from your point of view, would have it been more salient to put Benbest on Tank and Mirror, given his history on Ana?
I think that might have been better, just because he's more flexible, I guess. But like, like in either case, I think you're just throwing away the game. Like, I don't know. I get the argument that you needed to change something, and there's nothing else to change. But like, I get that, but maybe you just didn't recruit the correct players if you're not resilient enough. Like like the ping, sure, but it doesn't matter that much. Come on, like I don't know.
At least on
No, it
main
makes
support,
sense.
probably, right?
Yeah, that could be feasible, but Anna's a little bit more particular. It feels like you did make mention that you guys were kind of late to getting back into scrims from the midseason break. Could you maybe extrapolate as to why that was? Was that like a HeeSang hang up? Like,
No,
why were you guys?
I just wanted to give the guys a break, so we
Oh,
just
okay.
decided to
Well,
like a long
hey,
break.
nice little
And
vacay.
yeah,
All right.
we decided to come back like I think 2 weeks before our first match, and we were like, oh, that should be enough time. So
He's glad. All right. When it comes to HeeSang, how much do you feel comfortable kind of talking about? Because I know that was process. Let's say.
we can talk about it from start to finish if you want.
All right. So we've got a mid-season, we've got a player to fill, and we're on the market. Let's start there.
So first of all, I don't know where the lethal thing came from. Like,
okay.
I get that Turkey and Canada have the same colors, like on their flag, but like that's literally the only connection I can see. I haven't even talked. Like me and Askoft have never even mentioned his name.
Okay.
So I don't. I'm sorry for the guy, but I don't know where that came from. But yeah, we had two trialists. First of all, where we gave each of them like a day to scrim with us, and then one of those scrims was against Shock, and we were like, hey, this because everyone's playing on OPR accounts, like everyone has a number like SFS 12345,
right?
You know, and we were like, so either they swapped accounts or like HeeSang isn't playing because he wasn't in the lobby. So we're like, huh.
That's
I
weird.
guess he actually, like, the rumors might be true that like they get probe or whatever. So I reached out to Shock and was like, are you up to like selling him? And they were like, yeah, sure, we can give it a go. So we had him play, I think, one scrim log. First of all, because we only had a single scrim log the next day, and he was so much better than our other trialists. Like, it wasn't even close.
Do you want to say who the other guy was?
No, I don't wanna. I don't wanna like whip on them. But he was. We had two other guys. We had. Yeah, I'm not gonna say where they're from either. But
I mean, okay, you don't have to comment if either of those was one of the trialists. But like the obvious connection because of prior, team affiliation was Sika, right? Also Canadian boy and whatnot. Yeah. Like, did you ever reach out even like to get him into a scrim or something?
No, we never thought about Sika. We thought about him. We thought about him being an option, but we never trialed with him.
Okay.
Yeah, we had HeeSang come in. I think it was a scrim log against Florida, and he just did so much better than the other guys we tried out. So we were like, like, it's not necessarily a great fit. Like if you think about it, like 2 flex DPS and all that, but like we would be insane in Tracer Summer Matters. And going into that, before we even tried him out, I was a bit like hesitant about this because I was like, he can't be like that much better than our other Tracer trial, and his English is literally non-existent. But yeah, we tried with him and everything went really well. So we gave him another day, and we were like trying to acquire him after that. So it went really fast when it comes to intention. But then get him to actually like be signed and all that was a little bit more of a struggle. Where
just paperwork, or what kind of hung it up?
Oh man, it was just the managerial nightmare of the century. Like it.
Okay.
It's just it was literally the worst guy to acquire in terms of just work for me, because the others, it would have been easy. You sign them and then you wait till they get a work permit and then they come to Canada. But him, because of legal issues, he couldn't play in the shock facility, or well, he couldn't live in the shock facility while he was in the US. So I had to get him a temporary residence. I had to get him a temporary PC, and all of that within like 5 days or something, so he can play in the match. Like,
so you're calling up like Best Buy, like trying to get him like some sort of like gaming
yeah,
rig of some kind.
I had a rental company like deliver a PC to his temporary residence. I had like I had an acquaintance literally have his parents take care of him, and I had to call him an Uber and all of that. And remember, he doesn't speak like English. Like he's in fucking San Francisco. Like he doesn't speak any English. So I was worried for the kid. He's 18 years old. He's worried about like stuff as well.
I bet.
So but you know what? We got it all done. He had a PC to play on. Fortunately, we unfortunately lost the matches. But I think maybe that was a part of it. Maybe not. I don't know. But after that, like a few days later, he was able to come to Canada because Canadian visa laws are really nice compared to US laws. Like it takes like a week for you to basically get a work permit and all of that. So now he's here and we're still dominating. So I think we did everything right, honestly. And yeah, we've been having the best weeks in practice that we've ever had. So yeah, we'll see what the next few weeks bring, but very confident looking forward.
Yeah.
Do you just communicate through faith at the moment, or
he's our translator? Yeah,
he's a live translating. What a gamer!
He is our translator. It's true. The thing is that like the fortunate thing is that in game he is on the least communicative wall, which is very nice because like if you think about it, hit scan or DPS in general doesn't have to talk as much as like a tank player or a support player, so it helps. And his in-game English is all right. Like he can communicate ults and he can yell at Alpha E that he's a stat saver if he like tries to blink away and C9 the point. But when it comes to out of game English, it's a bit more worrying. But yeah, in game it's all right.
That's that does sound like an absolute nightmare to kind of get through, and it sounds like you guys kind of landed with it. And yeah, I mean, I think the narrative around him from the shock situation was like, oh, like how good is he really going to be? And it, you guys are seeing such a huge leap in terms of like scrim, quality.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he didn't work with shock. Like I don't know why they didn't want him, but he is such an obvious talent. Right. And I think he was probably the second best player on the shock as well, where you played for them. So I don't know what the disconnect there was. I obviously have no insight in them.
Sure.
Maybe there's like some personality clashes or whatever. I have no idea. But I think we really struck gold on this one, and we're lucky to have him.
Yeah. Looking like an absolute gem, obviously, closing out week 3, 6-0. Obviously, you talked a little, you gave some insight, let's say, on the Justice. Do you have any, read on what's going on with the shock? Obviously, I think a couple weeks back we had Gravy come on and he talked about how maybe the loss of Danteh was a little bit more impactful. And now we're seeing, Cal come in as a flex support, which is making everybody scratch their head. So any kind of thoughts there?
Not really. I'm not sure. I think it was weird for me that Danteh. I don't know if Danteh like left on his own. You never know.
Sure,
if he wanted to leave or if he got let go in the end. I think if they let him go,
I think that's what he said.
That would have been. I don't know why they would do that. I think he was a decent tank player this season, and I think he did pretty okay. So, if he wanted to leave on his own accord, then fine. But yeah, not sure what's going on. Obviously, if you have mixed teams, you always have you might always have a problem with clashes between the Koreans and the Westerners, so maybe that's happening. I don't really have any insight. All I can say is that almost everyone on the team really wanted to beat Glads because they all have some kind of history with their coaching staff at the very least. So it felt really, really good to just hammer them out and down to whatever place they're in now.
Do you think there's any credence
11.
to like you said like Canadian visas are pretty easy to acquire, right?
Yeah.
So getting Marvel to playoffs would be rather easy, right? Is there like a world where you just fly Marvel in before playoffs, you play play-ins from Canada, and then you have a you have a tank that plays main tanks. Everything has been Winston so far. Of course, the caveat to that strategy is we have no idea what we have no idea what the patch will look like, and if Winston will even be meta during that break, right? Or during the update with your new hero and then Flashpoint.
I think literally the economic situation of the league right now will not allow them to do that. Theoretically,
what you mean? They just signed a new sponsor. They got like this drink sponsor, Doritos, right? They got
Doritos.
Like Doritos. I saw. I think it was Punk, sipping on a little Doritos, and that post-match tweet that I saw, in response to Hunter. He's just letting him know.
But yeah, I think if they do that, maybe it helps a little bit. It's always nicer to be in person, but even with ping, it is an issue, but it's not groundbreaking. I think what they really lack right now is like the team environment to be set up correctly, or something within the team. Team dynamics are not going well at all. And again, to the credit of us, I think this is literally what we hired for. We just looked for people who fit into our ideal environment, and we started out the season and practiced really fucking poorly. Maybe because we came in late, but after that it just kept getting better and better, and I think that is a big part of that. So maybe the Gladiators didn't look for that, and maybe it's haunting them now.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a super hard thing to balance, right? It's also like maybe you're getting told one thing from the text, text from the immigration lawyer or whatever. But yeah, like it does feel very weird, especially like with the pickup of the flex support now as well. Yeah, I don't know, like not a lot seems to be going right, and I think like they are currently in a non-play-in qualifying spot, right? Is that right?
Yeah, they're bottom three currently. Yeah, 5 and 7. They're 11th right now, so that would be out of play-ins. So there's not even like a road to the playoffs for them right now. Yeah, they have to start gathering some wins.
Funnily enough, like both the Gladiators, like if you look at the 4 teams that are contending to not get knocked out right now, it's New York, Toronto, Washington, and Gladiators. They're all 5 and 7, and all of these teams, like New York plays Gladiators twice, and Defiant plays Justice twice in the next few weeks. So it's actually like all of them can knock each other out basically, which is or like one of the others, which is gonna be very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's where we get into the strength of schedule zealotry, right? Let me be the devil's advocate, because I feel like I am a zealot for competitive integrity usually, but then again,
yeah, you're German, we know, we get it.
Like this shit is so dead, might as well have some fun, right? Like so like it seems like what we have done is we've filtered for parity in the teams that are being doubled up, and that therefore produces the double knockout matches, right? Like where we are probably going to have matches between teams where it's pretty relevant, like they're directly competing against the top seed. or for the top seed, directly competing for the play-in qualification. That's pretty nice, right? Like that's something that would look like a seeding bracket, I suppose. Like if this was already in the tournament mode, it would be reasonably similar, right?
Yeah. I guess. I mean, yeah. But like,
is that just like a happy coincidence that it's kind of happened this way?
I think it's just a coincidence. I think that the league has done everything so poorly this year when it comes to the format that like I don't think there's any intention behind any of these things.
What can you give some examples?
Well, first of all, obviously having a format where you play 16 matches is just sad. Like it's honestly just sad. Like if you obviously want competitive integrity, and like one of the biggest things is to have an equal amount of matches between teams. This year we went back to 2 or 3 years ago where we had the same issue, where strength of schedule dominates like what's happening in the like qualifiers and brackets. Like the reason why we were in the lower bracket for mid-season was because we had the hardest strength of schedule out of any team. If you gave us any of the teams above, if you gave us the schedule of any of the teams above us, we might have been fucking second place. Like, god damn it. But even if we made like the top bracket, you don't know what happens. Like, it would have still been hard to qualify, but you don't know what happens, you know. Obviously, we lose the first match against Shock, but yeah, you never know. We never know. So just that you even have an unequal schedule is kind of ridiculous. If you look at the format this year, teams that let me just see, teams that don't qualify for anything from the start of the season till the end of the season. If you don't qualify for playoffs, or if you don't qualify for the mid-season, you will have played 12 weeks, like 12 weekends where you had matches, and 17 weekends where you did not have matches. And that is not even accounting for the like month or so that teams start practicing before the season even starts.
Right.
So like you have a season that is 29 weeks long, and 17 of these weeks you just don't do anything. Like, what kind of format is that? Like, just tell me like one sport where this is happening. It's just ridiculous. And sure, I can see that there's like arguments that they needed to reduce costs and this is all they could do, and but still, it's just from a competitive standpoint, it's just such a joke. Like even the pro-am, like we had a pro-am that was 3 weeks long, where the argument is that we needed a pro-am to be longer because the teams in the East, the contenders teams in the East, have more exposure than teams in the West if we only do it for a single weekend. But like, who wants to? I get that you want to give the contenders teams exposure, but just do it for 1 weekend, man. Like,
sure, yeah. Why do you need it to be 3 weeks?
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, sure that East teams get more exposure, but it's unequal like everywhere anyway. So you choose to make the regular season unequal over making contenders schedules unequal. Like, what is that decision making? It's just really poor decision making in terms of formatting this year, I think. And yeah, that leads to the situation we have right now, where 4 teams are playing for 3 spots. It led to the same with. And by the way, if Houston doesn't qualify, it's fucking ridiculous again, because their schedule is so much harder than Boston's and Florida's. They get to play Atlanta twice. Like that is also such a joke. Like, Sean Miller puts out a tweet that this season they
It's like Apex, you know? We love
because of
Apex.
the not that. Like,
Oh, I know.
because because of the unequalness in strength of schedule, they try to equalize it as much as possible. Then they come out with the new schedule, and it is as fucking unequal as possible. They just go like standing by standing, and they're like, oh, you play this team, you play this team, and they're not like taking into account strength of schedule of the first half at all, like at all.
Yeah.
The unequalness of the schedule they came out with is fucking ridiculous. And you're telling me that your biggest goal was to create an equal schedule? Man, like if either and by the way, before the season started, I told them I would, because I knew what was happening. I told them I would give them an algorithm that would create the most equal schedule if they needed to. After mid-season, I sent them another email. Well, not email. I think that time I reached out on Discord. I was like, I'll give you the algorithm. Just do it right. And they come out with the most unequal schedule. Like either you just don't give a shit and you're just not working hard on this, or the people behind this are just incompetent as shit. Like that's just it.
Look,
like I gave you all the chance to I want to help. I want this to be competitive, but if you come out with a schedule that is like unequal, I have no sympathy for that. Like I don't understand.
I think like my biggest thing is it feels like poorly optimized for both goals, right? It's poorly optimized for competitive integrity anyway. And as we're just like dwindling in viewership numbers and the league is shitting the bed and the future of this esports product is in question, I see how competitive integrity has to make way. But I also think the schedule then did not optimize very well for entertainment either, because precisely of what you said. Like, you ranked teams based on the first strength of schedule. You presume because of that standing that they are in an approximated elo tier because of that. But it's not necessarily the case, right? Like the first strength of schedule has skewed your even if you went by elo so much that you by trying to put people into brackets and doubling up the matches in their respective tier, you are actually creating less competitive matches by doing so. Had you had a more fair strength of schedule in the first half, and then grouped teams based on those tiers, that would have optimized for the best matches in the second half.
You don't even, like the first half you can't do anything about, because you don't know how strong teams are. But the second half you definitely
can play 12 games, right?
Yeah, if your goal is to make it as equal as possible, then just do that. Like, you know how many games we had between, like, Valiant is playing Vegas twice, I think London is playing Vegas twice or something like that. Like, no one wants to see those games. And if you had actually used like an algorithm that takes into account strength of schedule and not just standings, then we wouldn't have this. Like, it would just not happen. We would have more games. Like Valiant would have played like Toronto or something another time, for example, and then that would definitely be more entertaining.
Way closer.
I mean, maybe you could argue that Valiant Vegas is entertaining, but
everybody loves a good toilet bowl. Come on.
It's just if Houston doesn't make third place, it's just gonna be it's so egregious. It's honestly so egregious. There are so many ways that this could have like
been avoided.
Been avoided.
Arguably, actually, the teams are super helping out Blizzard here, because they have a perceived like power shift. Like London plays way better than they used to in the first half, right? Like if stuff like this doesn't happen, the actual problem is like
way worse.
It's way worse. You feel that it's way worse. Even Valiant plays way better now, right? Like the actual problem in how the average case goes based on first half is way worse. This already looks way better than it has any right to be, just based on how teams improved, right?
Oh yeah, I mean the it's just so sad that you even have to think about competitive integrity, because, like, okay, you can have like a schedule where you only play 60 matches, right? you can have that, but to make that work, and where it's like we realize schedules aren't equal, and we realize like teams it's just unfair. But like if you need to account for that, first of all, that shouldn't happen. But if you have that, then you can always have like a play-in bracket where not like there's no direct qualifications, or like everyone makes a play-in, so something like that. Something that we had in the last few like a few years ago, where like where it's just there's a lot more openness to who qualifies for play-ins or playoffs or whatever. But people didn't like that because the schedules were so optimized that like you didn't have to have like 8 teams in playoffs. It would have been fine to have just 4 or something, because teams had like more or less equal schedules and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just,
I think folks also
it's just
disliked how
frustrating.
meaningless the regular season schedule regular season then felt, right?
Yeah, but like if the regular season feels meaningless, then you just do more tournaments.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe there's a reason why it
just
feels
do
meaningless
only
and you get rid of it.
tournaments.
Yeah.
Like look at Call of Duty. Like what they're doing is they have like a few matches, and then they have a tournament, and they have 6 of these in a year.
So
Like,
it's just like
I
hyper
get
stages.
I get that there's like cost issues, but like
Sure.
you can have online tournaments if you really need to. Like we don't have to have a long regular season. And this regular season isn't even long, it's just full of breaks.
Yep.
It's not even a long season. It's just breaks.
You said 17 weeks of them, right?
If you don't qualify for anything, 17 weeks of breaks.
That's a whole lot of doing nothing.
Just to compare, in 2022, so in 2023, again, we have 29 weeks of play, and 17 weeks of these are breaks. In 2022, we only had 27 weeks of play, so 2 weeks less, but only 12 of them were breaks. So we had 15 weeks of play and 12 weeks of breaks if you didn't qualify for anything in 2022. And in 2022, you could qualify for stuff way easier than in 23. So while that applied to like only 15% of the teams in 2022, it applies to more than half of the teams in 23. Where it's just like, again, there's like cost issues and stuff that influences what we can do, but it's just from a competitive standpoint and from like our perspective, it's just really disheartening. It was really disheartening going into this season, and yeah, and I think if this was a bigger sport and if people still cared about it, and people would be upset about how this whole thing is being run. But no one really cares anymore, so it's all good.
One thing
It is what it is.
One thing I wonder, and I might even be on the side of defending that, is I'm not sure how bad a lot of breaks are, because if you look back to that's actually the Apex model, right? Like in a lot of ways, that you have way more time to prepare. It's just not in an attractive way, I would say.
No, the thing with breaks, is it might make games more competitive, but from like a viewer perspective, like you're a fan of a team and you see your team like less than half of the year.
Yeah.
Like less of half of the season that is also only half of the year.
Yeah.
Like of course you just get, like, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna follow like there's not enough content for your team to even follow it like throughout the year. It's just you just get turned away so easily by it.
Yeah, it's super hard to create any sort of habit. Like, not only is your time, place, day not set in stone, and that's probably true for most esports, but now it's not even week, right? Like that's a really rough one. And to optimize for that, I think like if it was more, it felt more sprinty, and you were pointing towards like a goal. I feel like the season halves can just, because they are so lacking in focus and what to play for, it doesn't create that desirable of an outcome. Like Matz season was nice, but yeah, if it had more tournaments, it just would have nicer breathers and natural high points. And actually, like the tournaments, in my opinion, throughout Overwatch League history, was one of the nicest format introductions, right? Like as much as I am European pilled in terms of the league structure and whatnot, the tournaments were like a nice addition to the regular season schedule stuff, right? Like they set natural high points. I agree, like 40 games was way too many. I'm still like on the boat that we could have probably done 24 games. Then again, like the additional cost of broadcasting and whatnot. I'm just not sure how much more that really generates, given that a lot of your folks are already like on salaries and whatnot. I guess there are day rates involved. Sure. Yeah, it's really hard to say.
I'm pretty sure the cost was one of the main issues for this format, and for a lot of the reasons that decisions were made. So in that sense, I get some of the decisions, but others I don't, and they're unacceptable. But even with cost being a factor, you could have a different format that is more exciting, I think. Like we could have a Call of Duty-ish format that's mainly online. It's possible. It's just something that was either not really considered or is something that they don't want to do because it doesn't fit this game or whatever it is. I don't know.
My fear is that this big patch that's coming in is so significant that we'd completely thrown this season to the Mickey Mouse pit, because like Atlanta is only the 5th best team in the world suddenly, and like I don't know, NYXL is top 3 or some shit like this, just because of the new hero coming in, probably like a couple of tank nerfs, Sunwheel in Sigma meta or whatever, like the flashpoint like replaces a control map, therefore control teams are naturally nerfed, and it changes the entire dynamic of how this game is played, right? And we haven't even talked about like what the support hero could do, right? Like all of this is.
I think okay. To the defense of like the league and so, I think this is all right because at least we have like 3 weeks to prepare on this new patch, and then we have 2 weeks of regular season, and then we go into play. So there's like a lot of time to get adapted to it, and maybe it won't reflect exactly the overall standings of the entire year, but I think in terms of excitement and in terms of like viewership value, I think this is okay.
Yeah,
and it doesn't eat into competitive integrity too much, to be honest.
Here's the steel man. No, here's the diamond man reading off this, okay? They scheduled in a way as to predict the most likely outcomes where the crunch matches are on the edges. Scheduled those behind the new patch wall. And those 2 matches that I think everyone plays after the patch was the most likely to determine like who makes it in and who doesn't, therefore acting as a good filter as to who should make it into these knockout stages, because we want the best teams in knockouts. That would be, the 5-head diamond.
That would be sick. Yeah.
If that actually was a consideration, someone should just spill the beans. Like what's the consideration?
There's no way, man. Like I just from what I can see, how the league like went about this and how Blizzard works in general, there's no way this has been part of the consideration, like at all.
Okay.
That's just nah. Like you have to realize that this is a big company, and there's like this one guy who creates like the teams you play against, and then maybe there's another guy, or it's the same, who like is like, oh, you should play against them here and here and here, and these people like that you don't account for them also being like really like involved with actually watching the league. They're just there to do their job. They're just there for making that schedule, and then Sean Miller or whoever says, okay, I trust what you're doing, and that's good to me. And that's it. I don't think there's like too much thought behind all of this. It's a big company, so you can't really expect like high I don't know. I don't even know what to call it, but like very innovative approaches to things, because like that's just how big companies are.
Look, if you're that guy and you're involved, or if you're any guy at the league, slip into my DMs if you have if you're actually this 5-head brain that actually planned for this. I agree that it's a stark steelman. But yeah, I'd be interested like what the optimization factors are. Of course, like it has to be like money. It has to be like what kind of things do the owners say? Sometimes, like for instance, last year we had like a weird schedule because some teams had some sponsorship agreements, therefore they couldn't do XYZ on those dates, and that changed some stuff around. Like sometimes there are weird things to optimize, so I want to leave room, but that room would also be super nice to be filled, because I think one of the bigger issues of this is the lack of transparency about all of this. And I feel like there is this diminishing, or there is this resistance to being transparent, because in the start it will hurt like a motherfucker, dude, to be transparent,
I think
especially
it's
when you're
okay.
doing bad, right? Yeah.
I think it's okay to not be transparent, but the thing is, like the thing is that if you think about every team, if we do poorly, like if the Vancouver Titans went 0-12 this year again, like I would have been called out for that. Ascot
Sure.
would have been called out for that.
Yeah.
People would have been after us. If the league does poorly, like
Sean Miller.
do you see anyone like actually being called out by people? No, like the most of the public doesn't care. There's only really Sean Miller that you even see, and like there's not much accountability there. Like they've been not doing great in terms of a lot of things this year, and there's just not really accountability from them internally or from the public. So we don't really see much changes, and like a lot of people are bowing out of this industry anyway. I mean, you just saw a tweet of Packing leaving to chess.com. That happened a few weeks ago, by the way. It's not something that just happened now. I think his decision was made before there was any announcement of this final vote happening at the end of the year. It just people like slowly drift away from this league. I wouldn't be in this position if I wasn't asked to join the team for some reasons. Like I was trying to get out.
Right.
It's just there's just so many things about the Overwatch League that people don't like in some way or another, and that's why like big figures have been leaving this particular esport from day one.
Okay, devoid of the system that Blizzard creates, do you believe in the product that this esport could be?
You mean the game itself?
The game itself, yes.
I think to a minor degree, there's some validity, just because this is a very unique game. If you think about it, it's just a very fast-paced first shooter. Like in terms of that, I do, but in terms of viewability and like hype moments, it's always been something that has always stricken me as it's really hard to make this work. Like it's really hard to like observe the game. It's really hard to see star players. Like
yes.
For example, Faith on the Vancouver Titans. Like right now, he's being touted as like one of the best main supports. He was for the last 3 years, man.
Yeah.
Like he was that guy. He was just on Boston, and like people don't see that. And I get it. Like, how do you see that? How do you validate it if you don't have like any? Like, it's really hard visually to see. It's really hard statistically to see. From what I could determine, he was like one of the best main supports the last 3 years. And yeah, now because we win more, people are like, oh, look at this guy. It's just in terms of just there's so many aspects of this game that are very complicated and complex, that it's really hard to make it work as a high viewed like high viewership esport, and with like a lot of hype behind it. If it made it a lot easier to go from 6v6 to 5v5, just to reduce visual clutter and all of that, but it's still pretty hard. And I think there will always be like some dedicated fan base, but you have that in Rocket League, and you have that in any esports you go. There's a scene, or there was a scene that I was aware of. There was Dark Souls 2 esports. Like there's dedicated people for everything.
Yeah.
But will it be a mainstream thing that should be on Disney? Maybe not.
And maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need to be on
Disney.
Maybe we don't need to be on TV. You know, I feel like if anything, that's probably for the betterment of the product, right?
Yeah, if you think about like Overwatch esports in general, like if the Overwatch League, if this is the last year, and it probably likely is, if you just think about team sentiment and owner sentiment, just like even like I think there's a chance that a majority of North American teams would want to continue. I think there's a chance for it. I don't know how big that chance is, but you have to take into account the Chinese teams. The Korean teams, mainly the Chinese teams, and then maybe the chances for the vote going positive are not that good.
Right.
But yeah, like in general, if you think about Overwatch esports, if it all kind of collapses, in a way, I think it might be good for just the esports itself. Like, I think whatever comes after, formats will probably be more fair.
Yeah.
Like,
more interesting.
Teams would not lose as much money as they do. It really sucks for any player, any GM, any coach, because like we won't get enough money to survive probably. But in terms of just the game itself, there's probably some positives that you can find if it all collapses.
Do you think like there is something to be said in how the game can be framed or broadcasted? Like, I feel like, okay, there's definitely a higher level of subjectivity in this game. I think you hit the nail on the head that it's super hard to see who's a great player. There's also there's such a wide range of opinions of who should be a role star and whatnot. Like, it feels like everyone can like justifiably claim, at least in the public's eyes, like anyone from 1 to 10 on the Flex CPS role can now be, nominated as a Flex support. The only really differing factor is if anyone has a PR campaign at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like, yes, that's an inherent feature of Overwatch, but do you think like there's something that could be improved about like how we talk about this game? Do you think there's more consensus than in the public among, let's say, coaches or general managers on who is actually good and why?
I think generally I would hope that coaches and general managers have a better grasp on this than the public, because that's their job. So I think that the public is probably not as good at this than others. But let
me quickly rephrase, because what I said sounds very obvious. I just feel like because of the subjectivity in Overwatch, like I had the coaches panel, right? I feel like these guys couldn't come together on one topic, a singular topic whatsoever, right? Like, in a certain amount of subjectivity is a given. Is Simple the GOAT? What about like the Vice or whatever? Even though I think most people land on Simple now. We dudes couldn't believe how high Proper was last year, even though every coach is telling me he's fucking Jesus, right? Like Overwatch Jesus, LeBron James just coming in, and it didn't really hit the viewer. And because the only way by which we can direct public attention is to form these narratives, and that narrative just overstayed its welcome a little bit too long, even though while everyone inside the league was still pogging, still like frustrated in scrims because this kid was just like pounding your favorite DPS player into the ground, it became boring also, maybe because it wasn't as obvious, right? But it still feels like when I'm not sure if everyone in the league would tell me Faith is one of the best like main supports if I asked everyone, right? I'm not sure if like the Shock obviously in some way disagreed with HeeSang, even though there's something to be said about like different players playing working in different systems. But like the evaluation, like folks had HeeSang like from the worst player to the second best player on the Shock, right? Do you think that because there are so many ways in Overwatch to win, that's also an obstacle to like how we can present this game and like phrase who's good and who's not?
It is very difficult. It is so difficult because this game is so complicated and complex that like any single decision can make or break a team fight or even a map win. That like, and you don't know who's this, because everyone makes a decision. There's 10 people in a game making decisions at any moment. You don't know like which decision impacts which other decision and like what the actual effect is for anything. It's so much easier if you watch CSGO and there's some guys hitting a headshot, like but yeah, it's really difficult, and I think the only way that I can see to even improve this is in any way is to like have some more high value statistics that kind of represent how good you are in your role or even on a singular hero, and it is a very hard job to do even statistically, but it's doable, and that's a lot of what I base my work on. And honestly, I don't think we can expect the league to do that for the viewer because it's such a hard job.
IBM tried, right? IBM tried. They had a ranking. If you held the ranking next to teamfight win rate, it was basically mirrored in the placements. Right?
Yes. The ranking was complete shit. Like, yeah, I mean, I have a ranking. I think it's pretty good.
How close do you think it is to actually like representing reality in comparison to something like HLTV rankings or something like this?
I mean, how close to reality? I don't know.
I mean, let me throw this at you.
I think it's probably the best way. Like, I think it is the best way to evaluate players that I can think of, and aside from the fact that it doesn't take into account personality types and what effect that has on everyone else, but in terms of in-game skill and like representing value of people, I think that what I have is pretty accurate, and it's probably better than anything out there, or like even a lot of expert opinions out there.
Yeah,
because I mean, look at the team; they're doing all right. I think that no one expected us to do this well, and it doesn't come out of nowhere. Statistics were a part of why we recruited these guys. Like I said, it's not all of it, but
it's part of it. It had some influence, right? And I mean, like, you want to talk about like the player ranking a little bit, at least to some degree, because I feel like it's like a sector that not a lot of people are trying to pull from. And as I think teams get better and better at building their rosters, I think across esports.
By the way, also just look at the Florida Mayhem. Like Gunver, I don't know if he still does, but like back then, he was hugely into statistics.
Gunva vision, right?
And I think that he probably still uses it to some degree, but maybe not. But if he does, then the Florida Mayhem are also another. Sorry?
I think less so.
Yeah, probably less so, because he has other stuff to focus on. And maybe he's just really good at scouting people now by himself with just his eyes. But yeah, I think it's a part of it, and it's hard to showcase, and it's hard to have anyone who's like actually good at creating meaningful statistics. So because the game is so complicated and so difficult, and Yeah.
The thing is,
Unlucky.
like, with your stats, and it's very topical once again. I don't know if you remember this, but I coined you the Oppenheimer of Overwatch statistics, just because like you unleashed the statistics, and then they went like, yes, this guy's kill pattern is very high, therefore he's very good. You know, and like,
oh my god, yeah.
That's another problem with statistics in this game. I feel like there are some very good statistics that you can use and have a way higher approximation rate of if someone is good or not. But those are seemingly never the ones discussed, right? Like it's mostly about like how much damage, how much total kills in overall seasons or shit like this. Instead of looking at stuff like first kills, first death, you know, like
yeah, even like the kill position, I feel like that was something that I think happened later in like Winston's lab, like updates going into like 2018. That was like super interesting. But I don't know if you've caught any of the broadcasts, but what they're doing now is they're trying to like show
the damage bar.
Yeah,
that is the most ridiculous thing. I've looked at this a couple times. I'm like, the first time I saw it, it said damage over the last 30 seconds.
Yes.
Dude, like, do you know how long a team fight is? It's like by the time the 30 seconds have caught up to the team fight ending, a new team fight has already started, man. It just doesn't matter. And then they cut it down to like 15 seconds, which is still way too long. Because like by the time the team fight ended, it will show the other team that lost the team fight did more damage. I'm like, dude, like you test it out and you see it doesn't work and then you scrap it, but like they're still using it because they put time and resources into like putting it on the screen.
And it doesn't even make sense.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't follow like even like what you're seeing in the game, where it's just like, okay, well the red team's winning, but the bar at the top says the blue team's doing more damage. So what? Yeah. It only serves to confuse the audience more when it should be kind of like a fun little stat, but it just doesn't make sense.
Okay. One thing. To be fair to them, I have a lot of respect for them trying, because
I agree. It's an attempt.
I think you have to try.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it was an idea.
It's an idea, but when you have an actual website that defines what a team fight is and what it says and what it means and how long it goes,
you could have asked the person who knows the most about statistics. You could have asked players. You didn't. You didn't. So it was definitely not a good try, but you tried. You know, like I get you. I give you that.
I got to steal man once again. Do you think like they didn't look at like, okay, let's see the p-value of someone having more damage throughout, you know, X point in time in the team fight, and therefore determined, oh yeah, this is pretty good. I assume someone did this also, like reintroducing the on fire mechanic and stuff like this, right?
Yeah, they were probably like, oh, if you do more damage, you win more games. So it should be a very important statistic. So it's like, yeah, let's use that. But like, of course, like,
oh shit, yeah.
Yeah, if you win games, you
die less,
more
win
damage.
more. Kill more people, win more games. Yeah, those are all correlative. That's true.
The problem with this game statistically is that there's so many factors and they're all like entangled.
Yeah.
And that if you want to actually have meaningful statistics, it takes a lot of work. Where I got with my models now, it took a lot of work to get there, and I don't expect that the league or anyone else will like catch up to that anytime soon. And that's why I'm like, I give them credit for trying. I like honesty.
Sure.
You have to represent the game flow somehow to make it easier to watch, and it was a legit try. And you could have definitely asked people that are in the industry, but well, you tried.
As we send off the statistics with a disappointed, approval clap, and we kind of round out the show. You've got, 4 more matches coming up. Week 4 starting with Vegas, ending with Shock. Kind of talk to me a little bit there. Is that a easy 2-0? Obviously, Vegas is a little bit of a gimme at this point. But are we concerned at all with Shock? Maybe get a little HeeSang revenge?
I wouldn't say concerned. I think generally we can probably beat almost every team right now, if not every team. I think we're pretty confident in in our guys, and
Sure.
the guys are pretty confident in themselves. It's just Shock is always a toughie because they always like they always manage to get this like extra 1%
Mhm.
out of nowhere. And I mean, look at their standings right now. We are 6-6. They are 6-6. We are at a +5 map differential because when we win hard.
Yes.
Shock also 6-6 in matches. They had -6 map differential.
Yeah.
When they lose, they lose, and when they win, they just barely like edge it out.
Squeak it. Yeah.
Like
five map 5s, I think.
Yep.
but they do edge it out though.
Yeah.
Like they are
Sure.
good at that. So if it's a close match, then
It's kind of scary, right?
it's gonna be very close against them.
Yeah.
So I think similar to Washington Gladiators, I think if we win map 1, very good chance we go 3-0.
Mm.
If we don't win map 1, it might get close again. But
Let's go into the deep water.
We'll see. I forgot what our maps are. Let me check real quick. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see. I think we have a very good chance to win this one.
Are you looking forward to getting back the loss versus Toronto in week 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we were all disappointed that we
Right.
lost that one, and I think we should have won it. And there were a lot of factors, and well, maybe I haven't seen. I think Toronto didn't even play last week, or they did, and I didn't watch. But I don't think they should be on our level. I don't think they are. So
I don't think they particularly were in week 1. I think you just
Yeah.
bad day at the
Yeah.
office.
Eric, can you
Yeah,
check real
exactly.
quick if Toronto's last game is the Titans?
no, their
No,
last
it's
game
not.
is Washington.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I mean, depending on how the rest of their stage goes, maybe you're the one that kills their playing chances. You know?
It's not impossible.
Possibility, yeah.
Where are they now? They are 5-7.
Yeah,
They
they're
play
the
Washington twice.
yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be interesting.
Last question for you on that front. We have 4 teams, like you mentioned previously: the New
Yeah.
York Excelsior, the Toronto Defiant, the Washington Justice, and the Gladiators, all vying for not bottom 3. Right?
Yeah.
Of those 4 teams, who's most likely to make it out of the circle of suck, and who's most likely to just suck?
I think right now. Okay, again, I should watch Toronto more, but I actually think that New York and Toronto probably have the biggest chance to get out of that circle. Just
Interesting.
with
Okay.
how momentum is and
Yeah.
and yeah, how the teams are doing. I think Washington Gladiators probably have a hard time. I can see. I feel like Washington might have a better chance than the Gladiators, which is crazy to think.
Hmm.
But then again, Gladiators shouldn't really lose against New York, should they?
They shouldn't, but will they?
Yeah, I
That's
don't
the
know.
question.
Damn. Gladiators are also at -9 maps. That's crazy.
Yeah.
They're pretty bad. It's not looking good. They're losing to the Rhine team, you know?
Okay. London, I think anyone could lose against London.
I
right
mean,
now, so.
I don't hate that, but like, come on. We're playing like everybody's still doing the whole let's just play monkey on circuit. Like,
Honestly, I don't know, man. London, if we play London in the play-ins, I'd get scared. Like, dude.
I think it's a scary stylistic matchup, but when you're looking at this team on paper and it's like hitter,
Sure.
hitter, and you're
Sure,
losing to the Rhine one trick team, it's like, all right, come on, guys, like something just ain't right.
Yeah. I think they have to turn it around. Well, the thing is that with all these teams, we have like the last 2 matches are in 1 month.
Right.
Like it's a while to go because we have a lot of breaks this season. So I'm gonna go spend some time in Mexico.
Hey, there you go.
This. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's gonna be very interesting this for who's gonna
I'd say
be
so.
not in the play-ins.
That is the race to the bottom is very hot, and it's 4 It's 3 teams that I think we all well, 2 teams we would expect, and then 2 teams that I don't think anybody would have probably put down in the bottom 5, right? It's a little surprising to say the least. I do want to, give you a little bit of a platform to, give a shout out to anything if you're excited. Maybe, say fuck it, I'm going to Mexico. See y'all.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, just big shout out to our players. I think everyone really pulled together this season. The reason why we're doing this well is because all of these guys deserve it.
Sure.
And I'm glad they are showing it, and I hope that we can show a lot more in the last 2 months of this season. I think we have a lot of potential to do great, and I'm really thankful for having all of them on the team. And yeah, just big shout out to them. This is the best season this franchise has had since 2019.
Yep.
Yeah, and I hope they get rewarded in some way, financially or publicly or whatever it is, because they're good guys. And similarly, obviously, shout out to our fans for still being here. I don't know if I would be a Titans fan after these last 2 years, but but yeah, glad to have them, and glad to show them a nice last one
send
to
off,
the end.
right?
Yeah.
How wholesome. Yiska, you got anything coming up?
Not really. I'm like getting a taste of what the good life in esports is like. Like
What does that mean?
Other esports.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
No, I'm at I Am Cologne next weekend, and then the week after I'm at Rocket League, which is in my hometown. Coincidentally, I think even Lemon Kiwi is casting that. I saw her post pictures of like streets I recognized. Coincidentally, very close to where you once bought your kimchi, Barroi.
Oh shit!
But yeah, doing that type of stuff. But of
Very
course,
good.
next week, looking forward to hopefully getting a couple more interviews. Got, I felt like a banger with Krusty. That was a bit fun one. So yeah, looking forward to doing more of those.
Yes. Stay tuned to the GG Recon YouTube channel. Maybe if I can sell Yiska and the video team, maybe we can get a blunders of all time for Overwatch. There's quite a few of them. They aren't all C9s. I'll have you know. As I'm researching, they're not all just people leaving the payload and choosing to lose. But as we flip our own proverbial barons, and we just leave the base open, that is episode 308. Thank you again, Barroi, for coming in and chatting for a little bit about the state, the health of the league, and the overall health of the Titans. And we send you the best of luck going into the playoffs. But until next week, we will see you. Adios.
Thank you. Bye.
Peace.